Money. It's a necessity. It's the key to getting things in life as a human being in the society. Too bad it's hard to get and save them, even if you have the motivation to. I don't know what makes it hard. Company greed? Lack of jobs? Corporate paying low on a profession that requires very proper skills? Taxes? Inflation? Rising demand for necessities? Politics? Country corruption? The Nintendo Switch 2? What the f*** are these prices? $450 for the hardware, $80 for the game. As of recording, these are the official price for the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World in North America. I don't have the hardware right now because it is so f***ing expensive. Well, even if I have the money, I still can't get it because I live in a country where Nintendo is barely known and I can't officially pre-order it without having to trust some shady business owners. And they priced it way above MSRP to the point where I don't even feel like getting one. Hell, with that price, you can get a base model 16-inch 2019 MacBook Pro, and you can do way more with it and play way more games than what the Switch 2 offers at launch. Look, I love Nintendo. Their library of games and franchises and the way they are developed are so intricate and charming, and it's literally the only reason why I still love their games. I have nothing against their research and development team. In fact, I actually really liked them. I'm also not trying to trash on people who buy them. I say enjoy it. I envy you people who have a Switch 2 because I am so broke I can't get one on release. But whenever I look at Nintendo's recent business practices and the choices they have made, there are a few aspects that make me hate the company overall. They're like these lumps of parasites that stir away the charm of Nintendo. Let's talk about their pricing model. The Nintendo Switch 2 is $450. Very expensive. For that price, you get a 1080p 120Hz display, 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage, 12GB of LPDDR5X system memory, an ARM v8 based NVIDIA processor with an Ampere based GPU, the game card reader, a pair of those magnetic Joy-Cons, the Joy-Con strap, the dock, the 60-watt power adapter, HDMI cable, and a USB-C to C cable. To be fair, I still think that the price could be lower than $450, but I won't talk too deep into the price of the console itself since I think it's somewhere between okay and not okay. For me at least. What I want to talk about is their game pricing and their paid services. $80 for Mario Kart World. Some might say it's too expensive. Some might say it's a price that's long overdue to be set as a standard. I'm more positioned towards the former because, my goodness, for $80 you can treat yourself with 80 portions of fried rices here. Or maybe buy an entire 3DS. Looking at the content they offered, it looks like it's going to be an open world Mario Kart with one mode that stands out the most being the Knockout Tour mode. Don't get me wrong, this mode looks extremely fun and can be very tense. Place at a higher ranking or you'll get knocked out. It's that simple. And with the very chaotic nature of Mario Kart, it will guarantee to cause a stir in the living room. Not to mention, oh my goodness, the music of this game, 1 billion out of 10 perfection. It's live studio recorded and in the most beautiful way possible. But for the open world mode, that one gives off the most amount of concern because it's just Nintendo's way to say, we ran out of ideas. Here, why not just stick around in the entire map of Mario Kart World? Yeah, sure, there's some stuff to do, but if you play around with this mode too much, it will eventually become very boring and redundant. This part is why I think the game isn't worth $80. My argument from the Switch 2 Thoughts video still stands. Unless if they're releasing a massive content expansion without any additional paid DLC, there isn't a single part of this game that justifies its $80 price tag. And don't even get me started on the paid $10 welcome tour. Wow, $10 for a tech demo and wiki article that barely provides any sort of engagement. That's just silly. Look at Sony. Astro's Playroom is free, pre-installed within all PS5s. And at least that one seems a bit more fun and whimsical. The worst part about this is that these first-party Nintendo games will barely receive a discount, so you're gonna have to pay full price even years after its release. Back in 2018, Nintendo launched their paid online subscription model under the Nintendo Switch Online branding. I'll admit, I paid for these services. Don't call me for being a hypocrite. I'm not trying to say, "Whoa, don't buy the Nintendo Switch Online!" Just describing the things that I don't like about the service. Alright, let's see the perks of being a member. 1. Online gaming. 2. Cloud save data backups. 3. Access to Nintendo Music. 4. Access to NES, SNES, and Game Boy emulators. And 5. Exclusive rewards. Cool. But, oh wait, there's a higher tier introduced in 2021. With that higher tier, you get Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, and more recently, GameCube emulator, temporary access to certain paid DLCs, namely the Happy Home Paradise DLC, the Octo Expansion DLC, and the Mario Kart Booster Course Pack DLC, and access to certain Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. And more recently, Nintendo also said that somewhere after 2026, users would need this subscription to launch the game chat feature on the Switch too. Now, I think we can all agree that paywalling online gaming is certainly stupid and dumb, and unfortunately there's nothing we can do about it. Nintendo surely isn't the first company to do this. We have Sony and Xbox having a similar model with their PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass. Well, I think their tiers are much more confusing than Nintendo's. In my opinion, subscription models like this shows a sign that these companies are starting to become greedy, paywalling features that are essential as part of the user experience. Nintendo's online subscription model seems to provide a decent amount of perks, at least for me, and with their Nintendo Classics games, $20 a year may not seem like a bad deal. And for $50 a year, you get, as of recording, 3 $30 DLCs and an extended Nintendo Classics library, plus a Sega Genesis emulator. But my goodness, they can't provide a stable online gaming. I swear, most of the time when I'm in a match on Smash Brothers, the amount of input lag is fucking insane. And for Splatoon, yeah, I think you can tell from these screen recordings. Well, Nintendo, if you can barely provide an optimal online gaming experience, I think you should be ashamed of putting a $50 price tag on it. And to be fair, I don't really care, as the rest of the perks covered up the price for me, and I barely go online on Smash Brothers. Except for Splatoon, I may need to use that Nintendo Switch Online thing. But yeah, I do have to state that their online services are not that good. Now let's talk leadership. Nintendo's previous president, Satoru Iwata, is one of the most well-beloved figure in the company, and I think that's what makes Nintendo Nintendo. Well, except for that one time where Nintendo puts this creator program. I may not be chronically online in that era, but I can already tell it's kind of f***ed up. Nintendo's products under Iwata's leadership are some of the most innovative things that, in a way, makes them stand out from the competition, especially with their Wii and Nintendo DS systems. The Wii U and 3DS may be their weaker systems in terms of sales compared to their predecessors, but they have their own charm to it, which makes it stand out from the Wii and the DS. A lot of you also may know that Iwata cuts his own salary to prevent layoffs during their hard years. Never have I ever heard a company that has a leader so brave to sacrifice themselves to keep the company afloat. Now come the present Nintendo president, Furukawa Shuntaro. This man has an economics major, and we all know damn well that a person running an entertainment company who majors in either business or economics will do things that's all about maximizing profits, prioritizing shareholders more than consumers, and sucking as much money from our wallets as possible. And quite convenient too, because Nintendo has gained lots of consumer trust with the quality of their products in the past, so they can put a high price tag on anything they want because they know their loyal fans will buy it. Look, my words there may be weak because there's a lack of strong evidence that Furukawa-san is doing all of this, but I feel like I can make up a few points that can at least give you an idea of why I'm saying such things. Like I've mentioned previously, the Nintendo Switch Online subscription service costs $20 a year and the expansion pack is $50 a year. And some of the paywall features, namely the online play, are an integral part of the overall console experience, and they design it in a way that will make you stay on that service for as long as possible, pulling money from people's wallets every year as an additional profit. So before the Switch era, Nintendo would typically release a Nintendo Selects or Player's Choice lineup of games, where games that are deemed best sellers are sold at discounted prices, usually much cheaper than the typical MSRP. The goal of this is, obviously, to get more budget-oriented audiences to play their best games without causing too much hole in their wallets. Look at now. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, a 10-year-old game, top-selling Nintendo Switch game. Still $60. Yeah, they may do discounts, but they happen so rarely, and even if they do, it's just 10% off. Just a very sneaky way of maximizing profits, squeezing and milking as much money as possible from a 10-year-old game. Now let's talk about that game keycard thing. I mentioned that this isn't as bad as many people would think. Yes, the medium itself sounds like a threat to video game preservation because there's no actual game data within the cartridge. It's just a chip with a digital key to download the game to the internal storage or SD card of the console. But you can still sell the cartridge and let someone else use it because it's not tied to one console and account, unlike the full game download edition one, where the plastic box just contains a paper with a one-time use code to download the game. The bad thing about the game keycard is, obviously, downloading the game part, because what if you don't have internet? What if Nintendo servers are down the moment you want to download the game? What if a certain part of the software has its license expired and the company doesn't want to renew it? What if the game got removed from the store? All of these would make the cartridge a paperweight because you can't download the game anymore. And the worst part is, what if Nintendo decides to shut down the eShop in the future? That'll make these cartridges useless as well. I would think otherwise, because typically when they shut down eShops, they still let users re-download content they paid and own, like the WiiWare, DSiWare, and the 3DS and Wii U eShops. So they might do the same when they decide to shut down the Switch eShop. But that also doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do the bad thing of deleting the entire Nintendo Switch game database, making re-downloading content that people have paid for impossible. And of course, who could forget about planned obsolescence? Why am I saying this? Well, on a recent Splatoon 3 update in Salmon Run, for some reason performance is way worse on the Switch 1, from a usually constant 60 FPS to frequently dipping down to 45 FPS, and somehow, performance is perfectly fine on the Switch 2. Now, this is just the beginning, and I'm not saying that they are purposely tanking the performance of the first generation Nintendo Switch. Who knows, maybe it will be fixed in a future software update. After all, the update provides performance and visual improvements only for the Switch 2, and apparently, for the Switch 1, they made some visual and graphical changes to reduce the differences in game operation speed when compared to the Switch 2, which, quite frankly, things up a ton. Of course, I understand when there's a ton of Salmonoids and a lack of pro gamer skills. On this old hardware, it will have its performance heavily reduced due to the fact that the game needs to render all these many fishies at the same time, and at the same time handling all of the particle effects and all that jazz. But then why the did this only happen on the latest update? Well, I don't know. It could be due to the graphical changes on the Switch 1 mentioned earlier to maintain performance consistency with the improved graphics for the Switch 2. And hopefully Nintendo will be aware about this issue and will release a software update that will hopefully fix the performance issue on the Switch 1. If not, then it's a clear sign of planned obsolescence, enticing people to just get the Switch 2 to get rid of the frame drops. Which is, not very cool. Well, I mean, there will be new games releasing for the first generation Nintendo Switch in 2026, like the new Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life. But for even newer releases in 2027, it will probably trickle down in frequency for the Switch 1 because, obviously, new console release means development focus will shift towards that new console. So unfortunately, there will be a time where Nintendo eventually stops supports the Switch 1. Not saying that they have or need or going to, but it would be nice if they keep it up and running, you know. But in the name of profits, it's inevitable. Thanks, corporate culture! Alright, after all that, I feel like I've got nothing else to complain about them. Oh, I might as well complain about their legal team, with how they shut down literally everything that hurt their sensitive little hearts. I mean, if they file a lawsuit on people who deliberately and purposefully try to infringe on their copyright, like that one situation where a guy leaks Nintendo's unreleased Nintendo Switch games and playing them on an emulator and at the same time streaming them to the public, at least that's understandable. But when they hurt people who, let's say, putting their music on YouTube or playing their legally owned games on an emulator, or even doing whatever they want with the hardware they paid for, that stuff just don't make any sense. They even went as far as threatening people to render the console unplayable in whole on a hardware level if they caught people doing stuff they don't want you to do. Though it's worth mentioning that this doesn't only apply to Nintendo, and other game console companies have a similar sounding threat on their end-user license agreement. I don't have enough legal knowledge to complain about this in detail, so I'm just gonna leave my words as is. Okay, now, how about let's turn the table and look at the bright side. Nintendo sold over 4 million Switch 2 units in just a few weeks of its release, making it one of the fastest selling consoles of all time. That just shows that they have so much loyal customers around the world. Ooh, all the Steam Deck users and PC Master Race communities are coping so hard right now. But I have a feeling that this is going to be the 3DS situation again, where fans will buy it on launch, and as the months come by, the sales numbers will trickle down and hopefully, just maybe, Nintendo will have to cut the price of the damn thing to, I don't know, $429 or even better, $379. Think about it. Weak new launch title, new games releasing significantly at a later date is pretty similar to the 3DS. And again, as I said, if you own a Switch 2 right now, please, enjoy it. You deserve it. I don't want to be the party pooper that's gonna give you buyer's remorse for not buying a PC instead or a Steam Deck. I get it. You just want a console to play Nintendo games. I have that mindset too. And I am jealous of all Switch 2 owners. But at the same time, for you who haven't bought a Switch 2, I'd say just hold on to your OG Switch for a few more months, or as far as one more year, and I feel like I'll do the same. The Switch 2 launch titles for brand new installments to an existing franchise aren't exactly the strongest. I mean, you only get Mario Kart World as a brand new Nintendo game. Except for that welcome tour, we don't count that greedy piece of shit. And the rest are just remastered Nintendo Switch 1 games. So getting a Switch 2 just to play Mario Kart World for me is just not worth it in my opinion. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't get a Switch 2. Eventually I will in the future, and hey, maybe I'll have some thoughts change. Just not right now, because And I'd like to say a few words before ending this video. The internet is filled with haters, and haters gonna hate. Me for referencing that Taylor Swift song. They love to stir drama and spread negativity, or even worse, misinformation, just to fuel up the heat even more. Praising a neat little thing a company did? You're now a cocksucker. Now people think you've fallen into their evil propaganda. I feel like with how the internet is constructed, the only way to gain internet points and clout is to be angry and spread hate, and I really hate that. And I, for sure, am willing to bet that people will call me a meat writer for just one good thing I say about Nintendo earlier. I know, right? The internet is filled with very complex people. And yeah, that's about it, really.